Warning, this guide features strats. Look, this guide's coming out near the start of week 5. I've tried my best to show exactly what NA and EU are doing in Party Finder, but depending on the party you join, there may still be differences in strats, so be mindful as always. Hi guys, and welcome to a Hector lecture guide to the fight M8S. This is Howling Blade. For this fight, you're going to want to assign standard color pairs. These are going to be the standard clock spot color pairs. You're also going to want to assign light parties. The fight will begin with extraplanar pursuit. This is a raid wide to heal and mitigate through. Afterwards, the boss will jump middle and cast either Windfang or Stonefang. For both of these, we deal with them in our color quadrants. I'll show Windfang first. The boss will summon down these sage-like weapons. These are going to shoot lasers out in the direction they're facing, so we dodge these at the same time that we deal with the Windfang. For wind, you dodge in. This is an in while stacking with a partner. There's a short telegraph before the actual cleaves go off. Had we gotten Stonefang instead, it's the same thing, but instead you go out and spread. For the out and spread, do this at a color waymark that's not getting shot by the laser. In this case, the cardinals. From there, have supports go left and DPS go right. Next up, the boss will cast either Eminent Rain or Revolutionary Rain. Both of these start with a ground AoE underneath the boss, and the boss is telegraphing 3 more AoEs that'll appear based on where the clones are going towards. The boss will jump towards one of those random spots. After this first set of AoEs, the boss will turn around 180 degrees and dash across the arena, and we're going to follow the boss for Eminent Rain, as this is followed up with the same cleave we had from normal mode shooting out in front. During this, though, we need to do something unique. This mechanic is always going to be combined with cleaves that will target the top 2 players in aggro, as well as both healers. To deal with this, the tanks take the cleaves alone, and they deal with this with at least their short cooldown. The healers are going to stack with the rest of the players in their light party. This is group 1 left and group 2 right, facing where the boss is dashed to at the very end. Had we gotten Revolutionary Rain instead, same basic idea at the start. Dodge these attacks, wait for the boss to jump. But this time, we're going to run towards where the boss has initially jumped to, because when they jump away, this time there's going to be a giant out AoE centered on them. We still need to do the same spreads, so the tanks separate and the rest of the light parties in their own little groups. But we need to do these out on the wall. This is once again group 1 left, group 2 right, facing where the boss has jumped to at the very end, and the positioning is quite tight here. Here's some tips for how to position this correctly. If you're one of the makeshift light parties, look at the cleave that the boss did across the arena and take just a slight step into it to be positioned well. As for the tanks, instead of paying attention to this cleave, pay attention to the very first AoEs when the boss was jumping out. The 2 that are on the side are going to showcase more or less exactly where to stand at the very end. There's always going to be an extraplanar pursuit raid wide, and then the boss will jump middle for Millenial Decay. I'm going to start by showing the standard Toxic Friends version of solving this, which has group 1 left, group 2 right, and everybody in their color intercardinal. Note that Millenial Decay comes with raid-wide damage as it goes off. A dragon head is going to spawn in either the north or the south. Later on, this is going to shoot a laser across the arena. This will be followed by another dragon head that will spawn either clockwise or counterclockwise to this one. Pay attention to which way the dragon heads start to spawn, as this is going to be the direction for the whole mechanic. Currently, we have a counterclockwise pattern. The dragon heads will spawn this way, and the party is going to do all their dodges this way. As the second dragon head spawns, the boss will cast Arrow 3 and telegraph a knockback. You can press knockback immunity at any point in time during the cast of this, and it will skip this knockback. As the third dragon head spawns, either all supports or all DPS are going to get targeted with spread AoEs. The last 2 dragon heads will spawn, and now we need to deal with the mechanic. We're going to ignore the knockback with knockback immunity. We're going to send the spreads to their intercardinal, and we're going to have anybody who's not targeted with a spread just hide east-west. The first AoE will go off. Be aware that these spreads give a magic vuln, so if you clip anyone with them, they will die to the second set that's coming up shortly. Immediately start to dodge the dragon heads, and like we mentioned before, because the dragon heads spawn counterclockwise, this time we will dodge counterclockwise. Now the other role is going to get targeted with spread markers, and they are similarly just going to go to the intercardinal, though these have now changed because we're rotating counterclockwise from where we started. The standard protocol is to have tanks or melees, whoever has the second spreads from that, rotate further, So in this case, the tanks are going to go all the way to 1 and 3 to allow the healers to not have to move as much. The DPS who do not have spreads right now can just hide at the Cardinal. After the final spreads go off, continue to dodge for one more line. 4 dragon heads will spawn, either cardinals or intercardinals, and tether to all of one roll, with the red angry tethers that need to be stretched out. You'll also get 4 towers. These will spawn wherever the dragon heads did not spawn. And we get another arrow 3 knockback. And since you likely used your immunity on the first one, you're probably going to have to ride this one instead. To deal with this, tether players positioned directly opposite their dragon head, they're going to ride the knockback behind the opposite dragon head and hide there. The players who do not have tethers are going to go to their color quadrant and prepare to get knocked back into whatever tower is in their color area. Everyone rides the knockback. And make sure you wait until the dragon head cleaves go off before you move in, and wait for the towers to be soaked. I'm going to rewind just a little bit to show NA does something slightly different for this right now. The most common strat is what's called Ferring Decay, and it's pretty self-explanatory. You're going to pre-spread exactly like you see here. And then the idea is to keep this general shape, these spread positions, and just rotate them along with the dragon heads. So when the first set goes off, you simply rotate. And everybody stays in these positions. This means the position is quite tight, but it means that you don't have to think about who needs to rotate further or not. At the very end, Ferring Decay deals with the second set of dragon heads with their tethers exactly the same way, so I won't show that again. However you resolve this, it's followed by tracking Tremors. This is a massive, hard-hitting multi-hit stack that hits for 8 total hits. You need to use heavy mitigation for this, and healers are going to want to use some of their more powerful healing cooldowns to be able to top the party up throughout it. When you survive all 8 hits, there's an extra planar pursuit raid-wide to still mitigate through. Afterwards, there's a cast of Great Divide. This targets the top player in aggro with what's supposed to be a shared tank buster. You can just invuln this. There's only 2 of them in the phase, so have main tank invuln the first and off tank invuln the second. Afterwards, the boss is going to cast Terrestrial Titans, and you're going to get these giant circles spawning on either east-west or north-south. Simply dodge in between them. Pillars will spawn out of the ground like in normal mode. And I'm just going to move the waymarks through the pillars so we can still see them clearly. The boss will cast Titanic Pursuit and crack both of the pillars in exactly the same orientation. If you're positioned in between the pillars, finding the safe spot from the pillars is pretty simple. Which crack can you see more clearly? In this case, it's for the group south, it's the crack over by the 4 one, which means 4 and the diagonally opposite waymark 2 are unsafe. I'm just going to overlay the AoE for when the pillars fall so you can see that in this pattern here, 1-3 would be safe. Before we commit to either 1 or 3, we wait for some ground AoEs to spawn. These laser beams spawn, one's a plus, one's an X, and the safe spots are always right next to the X. If I overlay all of the AoEs, we can see that in this pattern here, the 3-way mark is the only one safe from both the pillars and the lasers. As soon as you spotted it, dodge into that corner, hug the wall. Note the lasers go off a split second later, but as long as you don't immediately gap close, you won't get clipped by these, even if you move immediately. This is followed by a Revolutionary Rain or an Eminent Rain, whichever one you didn't have before. It's always the opposite. Following this, the boss is going to jump north, change its hitbox to be the one with no positionals, and start to cast Tactical Pack. Right about here, you want the boss to be bare minimum below 50%, but preferably 47% tends to be the sweet spot. As this cast goes off, we begin our add phase. Adds will spawn on the left and the right side, and they're going to tether each player. You want to run opposite whichever add you're tethered to. You're going to get some AoE damage, and then a bunch of things happen. First off, the middle of the arena is now totally unsafe. You cannot walk through it without instantly dying for the rest of this phase. Secondly, you've had both a green sphere and a brown earth cube spawn in the north and the south. They will always chase the dragon head that's the same color as them. So the sphere is going to chase the green head, the cube's going to chase the browny yellow head. This tells you which way we're going to rotate for the whole phase. In this case, we're currently going counterclockwise. You're also going to get a bunch of debuffs. The first set of debuff just tells you what add you can't attack. If you've run directly opposite the add you were tethered to, these will work out perfectly so you are positioned to attack the correct add. The second debuff comes with a timer, and these need to be cleansed by walking through a shape of the same color. So you cleanse the green debuff by walking through the green sphere, and you cleanse the brown debuff by walking through the brown cube. We'll deal with the cleanses a little bit later. To start, have the tanks positioned near the opposite colored shape. So the tank on the green head is near the cube, and the tank on the brown head is near the sphere. At the start, both ads are going to cast Pack Predation. This is a tank buster on whichever player has aggro on them, as well as mark a random player that has a debuff that allows them to attack. The player who's targeted is going to get shot with a line AoE. This is not shared damage, but most groups resolve it by just sharing it as a group because the spacing is quite tight and it's quite difficult to dodge it. The tanks are always going to position in front of the ad and the group behind. Make sure to mitigate through this as this hits hard, and you'll see that R1 is already starting to cheat because they're going to be our first player to cleanse, so they're cheating towards the cube. After the damage goes off, be aware this gives a magic vuln that lasts about 1 second. Immediately after this magic vuln falls off, we want to do our first cleanse. We're always going to cleanse the yellowy brown cube debuff first, followed by the green crystal debuff. Note that the tanks should already start to yank their dragon heads in the direction the shapes are going to rotate. The shapes are going to immediately follow on their own, and R1 just simply walks through the cube to cleanse. This does 3 things. 1, it does incredibly light damage, like barely noticeable amount of damage. 2, it does a significant amount of damage to the opposite colored ad. So by popping the brown cube here, the green dragon head is just taking about 20% damage. 3, it gives a roughly 4-second magic vuln, and if somebody else pops while this vuln is still on, everybody dies. So the next person that's going to cleanse is going to be M2, who has the short green timer, but they're going to wait until the magic vuln falls off, and then they run through the shape to cleanse. The goal is to make sure you do this before the boss casts its next Pack Predation, as otherwise things can get wonky and you might have 2 targeted players on the same side. Not what you want. Deal with the Pack Predation exactly the same way as before, with the tanks in front, the group behind. Mitigate and heal through it. And now, the short yellowy brown debuff is R2, they pop. Wait for the magic vuln to fall off. Instead of going on a specific timer for when to pop, I think it's always best to instead focus on the magic vuln itself. So don't stick with a consistent always pop at 10 and 5. Instead, look at the magic vuln. The goal is to pop the yellowy brown debuff as soon as you can after Pack Predation, and for the green player to pop as soon as they can after the yellow-brown player's popped. You're always restricted based on the magic vuln. When it falls off, then you can go. This is going to continue for 3 total sets. Very conveniently, healers will always have the exact same timer as each other, and tanks are never going to have a timer. Do your final pops. And just as you finish your pops, you now need to focus on killing the ads, which should be at very low health. If you want to, if they're still both quite evenly healthy, you can try to pull them near to each other to maximize cleave damage. There's no penalty for having them on top of each other, but odds are one of them or both of them are going to die before you can do this. As soon as one dies, everybody's debuff's cleansed, and everyone can attack either ad. You need to kill these ads before they cast their Forlorn and Rage. If you kill them, the stage returns back to normal, the boss is immediately targetable again, and you can continue on with the fight. The boss will spawn down 2 dragon heads, they'll start to spiral down, and this is the cue to start heavily mitigating. You're about to get a very difficult mitigation and heal check. The boss hits for 3 medium damage hits, very, very fast, followed by a 4th heavy damage hit, and then finally 1 more very heavy damage hit. Healers, you want to try to time spot heals for after the 3rd or 4th hit of damage to make sure everybody's full before the final hit. The next mechanic is Terrestrial Rage. For clock Terrestrial Rage, which is what I'm about to show first, everybody is going to start by positioning at their color cardinal. Here I have everybody loosely spread, supports left, DPS right, but just any spread is helpful. Lasers spawn down, always oriented towards an intercardinal. And then we get spreads on all of one roll, and a stack on a player of the other roll. Finally, the other lasers spawn down, and this is kind of the whole mechanic. You need to dodge the lasers, while dealing with the spreads and the stack. The goal is to do this in a way that's consistent. So for clock Terrestrial Rage, any player with a spread simply goes out at the wall at their color cardinal. The other players stack middle. If I overlay the first laser AoE so you can see where they hit, everyone is in a position where they can dodge these lasers with just a simple slide to either the left or right, both the spreads and the stacks. wait for the first lasers to go off, and then immediately dodge into them. And that's it. Immediately afterwards, the boss will cast Shadow Chase, and we're going to get more spreads and stacks. These will always be reverse rolls of what you had originally. So because DPS had the stack first, DPS now have to spread. We're about to get 5 of these clones you'll have seen in normal mode that are going to spawn around the arena. And so we need to have each of our different groups, the 4 spreads and the stack, all go behind a different clone. Roughly speaking, these are where you want to go. If you go to these set positions, there's always going to be a clone near to where you need to be, and you can simply adjust to the nearby clone. Go to your position, wait for the clones to spawn down, and slide so you're directly behind one. Afterwards, you get some green dragon heads, and now that the spreads and stacks are gone, just get behind any of them. The boss will become targetable, but wait for the dragon head AoEs to go off. Now, in EU, things are done a little bit differently. Instead, people follow the strat that was shown in Rinon's guide. I'm going to link that guide in the description because they do a fantastic job explaining it, but in case you want to see a top-down representation of how this looks. For Terrestrial Rage, once the lasers spawn down, find the laser that's out on the outer wall. There's always going to be one that's near to the wall at one of the intercardinals. Make this your new north for the mechanic. Everything's going to be done oriented towards this laser. The spreads and the stack spawn. And for how we position, the stacks go opposite the true north. The spreads are going to spread out, range, melee, melee, ranged, group 1 left, group 2 right. Position like this, and then as soon as the first lasers go off, the tanks or melees with spreads are always going to dodge towards the new north, everybody else dodges towards the middle lane. The boss will then cast Shadow Chase. They use slightly different positions based off of the new north. So the stack goes near where the new north was, and everybody else goes to positions relative to that new north. However you deal with this, it's followed up with either an Eminent or Revolutionary Rain. This is more or less identical to what it was in the first phase, just at the very end, as you're dealing with the final cleaves, look out for dragon heads. Dodge them afterwards. There's another great Divide Tank Buster. Make sure the other tank has aggro if you want to invuln both of them. And finally, we get Beckon Moonlight, the final major mechanic. I'm going to just show Quad Moonlight for this because it's what used across both NA and EU. Beckon Moonlight is going to spawn 4 clones, each of them showing a half arena cleave. And then after a Terrestrial Rage cast, we get the same stacks and spreads. And once again, that's really just the mechanic. Dodge the cleaves while dealing with the stacks and spreads. Like before, there'll be 2 sets of stacks and spreads, and the rolls will swap in between each one. The first set of stack and spreads will go off just before the first cleave. And the second set of stack and spreads goes off more or less at the same time as the last cleave. Now, for how Quad Moonlight works, look at the first 2 cleaves. Find the quadrant safe from both of them. In this case, the 1 quadrant. We're going to do the first stack and spreads in that corner only. Look at the last 2 cleaves. In this case, the 4 corner is safe from both of them. We'll do the second stack and spreads in that quadrant entirely. For how to position, the stack just goes all the way against the wall in the corner. Everyone else is spreading range, melee, melee, range. Group 1 left, group 2 right. The stacks and spread will go off. The first cleave. Wait for the second cleave before dodging into the other quadrant. Now have the other roll stack and the other roll spread. And you'll stay in these positions for the third and the fourth cleave. Dragon heads will spawn that always make the intercardinals unsafe, so dodge to a cardinal. The boss will load up either a Windfang or a Stonefang, and after the dragon heads disappear, resolve the Windfang or Stonefang exactly the same way you did at the beginning of the fight. You'll get a Tracking Tremors multi-hit stack, and then an Extraplanar Pursuit raid-wide, and depending on how quickly you killed the ads, potentially another Extraplanar Pursuit raid-wide to heal through. If you have not killed the boss at this point in time, the boss will become untargetable and immediately cast Enrage. However, if the boss is below 0.1%, they'll become untargetable, send you to the south of the arena stunned, spawn dragon heads, and begin to use them to power up. The boss will start to grow large, and get ready for Phase 2. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed.